Good evening. Welcome to my podcast. It's been a while since I've recorded an episode, so I'm excited to do an episode today. As always, thank you for listening. I see even though I don't post as I should, I still see that you guys are listening, whether it's on Spotify or YouTube, you guys are still engaging. So thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. I wanted to do like a quick video today. I said video. I wanted to do a quick episode today, since it's election season, and I will be voting early this year for the. Actually, this is okay. The first time I voted while I was living abroad in Belgium, so I had to cast in my mail-in ballot in 2020. And this year will be my first time voting in person, but I'm voting early. By voting, I mean the presidential election, right? So most of my audience are American, so sorry, I did not specify that. So I'm going to talk about the American election. I've done 2 episodes on it, but focusing more on Kamala Harris and what's going on. But today I just wanted to talk about voting and why minorities should vote, right? Regardless whether you are Democrat, Independent, or Republican, this is the one requirements of democracy, right? A country from the people, of the people, by the people. And this is the one way that we show that we are a democracy, right? We have elections. We don't have dictatorships in a way, but we have elected official that we choose, right? Whether indirectly sometimes, but we do choose them directly in most cases. And this is the beauty, right? This is one of the beauty of living in a democratic country. And there's been a lot of stupidity. And I remember in my last episode, I talked about how it was so stupid that people are trying to weaponize whether Kamala Harris was black or not and everything. And my question was, is she an American? Because that is the requirement that we need for her to be able to run for the presidential election according to the Constitution. Is she an American? So I'm not going to focus on whether she's black or not. And in this episode, I'm not going to focus on which candidate that you should vote, because I am a liberal, and liberalism in its true form is the belief that everyone has a say to believe and to think how they do, as long as you're not hurting anybody, right? So this episode is not to tell you who to vote for, but this episode is to illustrate why you should vote regardless of how you feel about the political landscape, right? Especially minorities who are on the fence. I sometimes don't understand, and as a political scientist, as somebody who study politics, as somebody who do research, I never understand people who are on the fence. You are on the fence for what? Right? Because it's like, and you know what? Let me backtrack. People are usually on the fence because the way elections are run, we don't really hear about policies. I always say I would do an episode on why democracy does not work, but let me just mention briefly why in development theories, we question the validity of the democracy for a second, right? If you look at this year's election, or if you look at the election of the past, and the candidates are not running on policies, but they're running on attacks, right? So let's use the black trope, right? Trump saying that, oh, I did not know she was black. He did that because he knew how to weaponize that sentence, right? So we don't really hear policies. Most people do not remember that Trump said out of his mouth that he did not have a plan for Obamacare. Kamala Harris, she's not really a good at answering. She's not good at answering questions, right? Because every time you ask her something, most of the time is, well, Trump did, and it's like, girl, it's not helping you. So in a way, people are undecided or on the fence because they don't know what they're voting for, right? Because some elections end up being a likability context, or who's the lesser of the two evil according to your standards, right? So I do understand what people are on the fence about candidates, but I don't think you should ever be on the fence about voting. People die in order to be able to vote. I just saw this video of this older woman from Mississippi talking about how in 1960, Black people had to pay $2 in order to vote. I had, people who look like me had to pay to be to be seen as worthy to participate in a country that they helped build. Do you know how maddening it is? And as somebody who studied African politics, when I hear Western nations talk about African leaders should let people vote and all of that, people do vote, but we know that there's a lot of behind the scene coups that happen that people's votes do not count. So when I vote, I don't just vote because of the history of minorities who look like me who had to pay to vote. I also vote because I know there are countries where people live in a world where their government is now responsible to them. Their governments are not beholden to them. So I vote, and the funny thing is, the first election that I was eligible to vote for was actually the 2016 election, and that was also the year that I went to college. I did not know that I could vote on a expired license, so that's why I did not vote, because I was trying to renew my license and my new license did not come, and then it was just I was living in the south of Rhode Island, and I had to go home because I did not change my address to my campus address, so it was just a mess, right? So I did not vote, and I remember feeling so bad about not voting because I was just like, people say oh yeah, even if I vote, it won't. Even if I don't vote, it won't matter. Yes, it will. You don't live in a country where votes do not matter. Yes, we have the Electoral College. It's not a perfect system, but for the most part, we don't live in a country where our votes do not matter. In this country, the caged bird can sing and they can vote. So you shouldn't be on the fence about voting ever. In other countries, they've made it a law for you to vote, a law for you to participate. Do you even understand how crazy that concept is? It's we want you to participate in the decision that we make. That's right. Of course, politics is not perfect. As somebody who studied politics, I can tell, I always tell people, politics is not a perfect game. If you're looking for perfection, do not look for politics. We say it's a game of love and war. So politics is not a perfect game. But even in its imperfections, there are notions of it that are good. And I constantly remind people, it's you know how when you refuse to eat your food and then your mama tells you there are kids in Africa who don't have food? Well, there are places in the world where people cannot vote. And in the United States, not everyone had the right to vote. Women couldn't vote at one point. Black people could not vote at one point. So hearing this older woman who told a story, who was excited to go vote, and she said, I am happy to vote as a free woman. She doesn't have, no, she's voting for free. Like, think about that. She is excited to vote for free because the first time when they were allowed to vote, like, they had to pay $2 to vote. They had to pay to have a voice. Not only did we fight a civil war, not only did some people did not know that they were free citizens, but even as citizens, they were considered second-class citizens because it's like, yeah, you still have to pay if you want to have your say. And you have to see how important it was for them to have a say, that some of them were willing to pay to have a say. Of course, they put those amounts to kind of deter them. But our cousins were like, we will pay. It's okay. We will pay the $2 just for us to have a say. So please, if you're an American citizen, remember that. That is a history lesson that you should never forget. And whether you're Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, if you're an American citizen, please go vote. I don't care who you vote for. I never tell people who I vote for. So regardless who you're voting for, regardless who aligns with your interest, just go vote. Vote, vote, vote. Because in this country, the caged bird can't vote. Have a good night. Bye.